7 scary stories for Halloween that will give you nightmares. It is that time of the year again. The leaves are changing, the pumpkin spice lattes are in stores, and it is time to get ready for Halloween. Halloween is a holiday about dressing up, telling scary stories, and scaring people. It is also a holiday about candy and sugar. This list of stories will give you nightmares guaranteed. Every story has been tried and tested by myself to make sure they are as scary as possible. So without further ado, here are 7 scary stories for Halloween that are guaranteed to give you nightmares. 1. A Diet Love Passage incident. Maybe it's best that no one knows what happened there. Things are scary enough as it is. In 1959, a group of Russian hikers disappeared while on a skiing trip. When their camp was discovered, their tents were torn from the inside and they were wearing very little clothing. It gets even weirder. The bodies were stained an orange color, their internal organs badly damaged, with a force that a doctor, charged with finding out what had happened, described as equivalent to a car accident. There was no sign of a struggle, despite the victims' fractured skulls, broken ribs. A woman was found without her tongue, without her eyes, and with part of her face torn off. As you can imagine, plenty of theories about their cause of death have flourished and been tested over the years, but the final verdict was that the hikers were killed by a force of nature. What does it mean? Something so ambiguous can only be terrifying. 2. Calls from a dead person. On September 12, 2008, 2 trains collided in the Chatsworth district of Los Angeles, killing 25 people. One of the passengers on board was Charles E. Peck, who was traveling from Salt Lake City for a job interview, and he had high hopes of being hired and intended to marry his fiancée Andrea Katz if he succeeded, since he lived in California. In the 11 hours after the crash, Peck's cell phone called his fiancée, son, brother, stepmother, and sister numerous times. In all, his family received nearly 35 calls. When they answered, they only heard the noise of the parasites. When they called back, the calls immediately went to voicemail. His family remained optimistic and believed that Charles was alive in the rubble and trying to reach them. When the search team traced his phone signal, they discovered his body in one of the first cars, where there had been the most injuries and casualties. They concluded after a forensic examination that he died instantly and that he could never have made those calls. The weirdest thing is that they never found the phone. 3. The strange story of Alyssa Lamb. A recent and quite frightening mystery. In February 2013, a 21-year-old student named Alyssa Lamb was found floating in a pool of water on the roof of the Seaside Hotel in Los Angeles. She had been reported missing. A repairman found her after guests complained of a weird taste in the water. There were no signs of trauma on his body and no trace of drugs in his system. Death was classified as accidental drowning. What makes this story particularly disturbing is this police-commandeered video, which likely shows the girl's final moments. Does his behavior stem from schizophrenic tendencies unknown to him? Maybe there was someone outside the elevator. In addition, access to the roof was condemned and protected by an alarm. The walls of the tank were so high and the door was so heavy that several workers had to open the door and pull his body out. How could Lamb have entered the tank and closed the door after her? Strangely, no drugs or alcohol were found in his system. 4. Email sent from the grave. Jack Frost died of arrhythmia in June 2011 at the age of 32. It's tragic, but not weird-looking ... yet. In November of the same year, his friends all received an email from his account, signed in his name. His friends and family are categorical. No one had his password and no one could have hacked his account. And yet, the emails contained personal information, which only Jack could know. An email to a friend involved cleaning up that mess in the attic, which referred to a conversation the two had privately shortly before his death. An email to his cousin said he knew he would break his ankle, an injury which occurred a week before the email arrived. Probably a completely sick hacker, but Jack's family and friends say they still haven't received an explanation for the emails and have given up trying to find one. 5. Welcome to the Haunted House. It looks like a story straight out of a horror novel. The ghost train inhabited by real corpses. The story of the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California, however, is true, and if the kids at Universal Studio hadn't been poking around, no one would have ever found out. In December 1976, a film crew came to film an episode of the television program $6 Million Man. As they prepared the haunted house for filming, a technician moved the hanging man and his arm fell off, and a human bone appeared. The body turns out to be that of criminal Elmer McCurdy, who robbed a train and stole $46 and 2 bottles of whiskey in 1911. Before the body was discovered by Universal Studios, the man had been left hanging in the haunted house for 4 years. Customers just thought it was a dummy. 6. Buried alive. In September 2014, a Greek woman with cancer was buried alive by accident. She woke up in a coffin and died before anyone could save her. Visitors to the cemetery had heard screams and sounds of struggle. When they finally dug her up, she had been dead for hours. I point out to you that it was not during the Middle Ages. It was in September 2014. Some are luckier. An astonishing case happened in 1915 when a woman from South Carolina Essie Dunbar suffered a fatal epileptic fit, or at least that's what everyone believed. Her sister, who arrived late for the funeral, demanded to see her sister's face one last time as they threw the first shovels of earth. When they opened her coffin, Essie sat up and smiled at the mourners around her, a sight that horrified everyone present. She lived 47 more years, 7 flesh-eating maggots in a woman's head. Location, Peru. To avoid yellow fever and typhoid fever, we are used to getting vaccinated before going abroad. However, nothing prepares you against flesh-eating maggots. When English youngster Rochelle Harris left with her boyfriend for Peru in 2013, she didn't know what she had brought with her. During the flight, she had violent migraines, pain in her face, and the sound of something scratching in her head. The doctors thought it was an ear infection, until they saw a bunch of maggots in the pinna of his ear. It's disgusting, isn't it? There are always more. A fly had laid eggs in his head. The deeper the doctors scratched, the deeper the larvae fled, by digging a 12mm hole in his ear flap. Peru, we never...
This is the end of this video. If you liked it, remember to drop a like and subscribe. It's fun and it helps us grow. See you soon.